and welcome to Painters Motivating Painters. This is our end of the month review video for May. We've got a good amount of entries this month. People are very busy with their painting. So we're going to try and get through them in a reasonable amount of time, but still give you constructive feedback to take that next step on your hobby journey. So first off, we've got Aiden Lee with this Chaos Sorcerer, Chaos Space Marine person, anyway. And spent a lot of time in the details, but not happy with the outcome. I'm looking to see why it could improve with a lack of focus. Yeah. So first of all, I'd just like to say, like, looking at the details, they're like really amazing. To be honest with you, I love your like red lightning effect. The way you've got this kind of like lightning slash lava in the ground. All the armor is like really well rendered and blended out and lovely looking. Um, I like the metal. I like the bone. I think everything, every single individual element on your model looks fantastic. But as you've said, the whole is less than the sum of its parts. And really, the biggest issue we have here is just the silhouette of the model. Like if you imagine a like a who's that Pokemon where you just have the, like a black outline of this figure, you'd be like, what? You'd have no idea what it is. Like you might be able to pick out that it has arms and a leg, but like because it's got these horns sticking up out of the top of his head, and then he's got the rack of heads on his backpack. Um, it's just the actual outline of it is not very readable. So like each individual detail, you're like, oh, those horns look great, the heated metal's amazing. But when you like just look at the model from a distance, you're like, what am I exactly supposed to be looking at? So I tend to think about this. The issue with Games Workshop models is that they have kind of like a baseline level of ornamentation to everything. So everybody's got to have like their purity seals and their chest eagle and all this stuff. And over time, it's just like gone up and up and up and up and up. And then when they have special characters, they add on more stuff. So you end up with the fantasy problem where you have guys who have hats that have hats on their hats. It's not just like elves and you have like a hat. There's a guy who has a bigger hat, which is just a hat that sits in his hat because he has to stand out from the other guys. So I always think of all these features as being like optional, and if you weren't gonna add it on yourself, like cut it off the model. So like, are there any bits here? Like you've done a great job adding on this lightning effect. That's obviously like a focal point. I think like the backpack looks really great for the back for something for us to look at, but I don't think these heads are doing anything for the model really positively speaking, especially this big blue ultramarine. That's like the only element of cool color in the entire figure. You're like, that's not like if you're going to use a spot color like that, we'd expect it to be like, oh, we really want to draw attention to that, as opposed to it just being a random decapitated head on his backpack. Yeah. So like if his eye in the middle of his chest was blue, that would be like, okay, it's drawing attention in there. And then basically kind of think about it like lines of sight. So if you think like his hand being out like that is like drawing a line into his chest, and then the horns are kind of drawing a line towards his chest as well. But because there's so much stuff in the way, it's kind of breaking it up and camouflaging the like outline of the figure. Um, so yeah, I'd recommend looking up what you call it, Trevarian. He has a video where he puts together like it's like an ogroid myrmidon, I think, and also that uh void dragon, that Catan Necron god guy. And he basically like removes bits of the model because he wants to create lines of sight that'll make it more readable overall. I think like that's a really eye-opening video when you watch that, and he's like talks about like having this negative space and having these different elements. What's getting focus in the piece, because a lot of the time, the way the sculpts are designed, there isn't really a great focal point. So when you go around, you paint everything to such a high standard as you did here. Like as you said, each individual element looks great when we zoom in on it, but from the distance, it's like there's so much going on. It's just very hard to actually identify what we're supposed to be looking at. But again, I don't think that's a criticism of your painting. I think you've done a stupendous job on this figure. Uh, it's just that in terms of the sculpt, it's a bit of a less is more situation, in my opinion. Jim?
Yeah, it is difficult to read as a whole. I agree completely that the individual elements are very nice. I love what you did with that lightning. You could make it hotter in some like you've got a really hot spot there, but where each of these bends are and where it leaves the weapon, you could make that hotter. I think, but on the whole, I think that whole effect is selling. I think the readability issue is because there is just so much damn red on this thing. Red is a very eye-catching color. It's bright, it's saturated, and there's a lot of it. So your eyes just, where am I looking? But obviously, it's a very busy build as well. So I think it could be a combination of those two things. So, I mean, it's such a shame to say it because when you look at this cape from the back, like you've done that red absolutely gorgeously. It looks awesome. But unfortunately, I think the cape is one of the things that's got to change colour, and this rag at the front as well. You got red light, red rag, red ground, red interference colour, red banding round his armour, red pipes, red horns, red flag, red head. It's just too much. Too much, man. So I'd be putting more neutral colours in wherever you can. Obviously, the red from the power weapon has got to be red. The red coming up from the ground and the interference colours. You could actually desaturate these reflections in the armour quite a bit. They're reasonably far away from where the lava actually is, so you can sort of cheat that way. You can ruddy the red up as it gets further away from the actual lava. Only this area very close would be like quite a bright red. Everything else would be really ruddy. So that's another thing you can do. And then as Matt says, like that instance of blue on that helmet up there is not doing too much for you. So either desaturate it so it's not also yanking attention, because again, primary color, very bright, high up on the model, very saturated color. It's another instance of the attention stealing. So we just need to like hone in where you want the focus of the model to be, and I think the two areas really are the head and the weapon. So anything else, just try and dial it right back, desaturate the colors, and tone it down that way, because yeah, you've got a great amount of skill individually, like brush control, the glazing techniques, the highlighting, the work with the metals is all really good. It's just too much of a riot of color to really read on this tiny little chaos space marine. So yeah, really good overall, and I hope you find that helpful and the way it's intended. And please come back again next month. Okay, moving on to Sebastian, who's done some speed painting. 30 to 40 minutes per intercessor is a really quick turnaround time. So yeah, they look really good. Like the sponging effect is definitely working. You could have a little bit higher highlights in some places if you want to, but I don't think that really that needs it that much. You could, I mean, it depends. 30, 40 minutes, is that the goal? Are we going for churning these out and they look, tabletop ready and fine? I think you've nailed it. But if you're trying to get a little bit more out of them, I think there's two things you could do really, and that's maybe use an oil wash or a shade just to give them a little bit more grubbiness to them. And secondly, like the tufts on the bottom, on the base, sorry, they're really big and they're all the same color, and it's crying out for variety there basically. So you can dry brush tufts, you can get some shade in there, you can obviously buy different color tufts as well. But yeah, they just look like really solid, dull, just slapped down, and they're really big in some instances as well. So it's just covering like almost a third of your model. So yeah, I think that's a little bit of a shame. But yeah, the 40 minutes on the space marines themselves, really great work. You've managed to even save like the the recess, like the darkness in the recesses as well. So you're keeping that separation there, and that's something that really struggles with speed painting a lot of the time. So really great work, Sebastian. Nice one. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, I think they're very nice. I think the scheme is like doing a lot of heavy lifting there. It's just a really nice kind of palette that you've chosen. Really makes everything kind of pop against one another, and that kind of stipply texture is way more interesting looking, and kind of like gives you a nice blended effect without you spending like a million years on it. But yeah, I agree with Jim on the tufts. I think you could get away with the tufts if they were being this size, if the models were like lifted up, like if they were like on a layer of cork and they were like standing on rocks that were above this grass, but like this guy has got like stuff coming up to like crotch height. You're like, it's just going to be kind of awkward for you. And yeah, just some washes into the tufts that kind of like bring a bit of variety into them would definitely kick things up a notch. I think especially when you're speed painting, if it is like for like you want your army on the table, basing should be like a really high priority because it's a very good way of making your model look really nice in not that much amount of time. Because once you get them all down, the bases look good, the whole army looks really nice. So I would spend, if that's the goal, I'd spend a reasonable amount of time on the basing rather than just having it be plunked on and done. But they look great. Fair play. Thanks for submitting. Hopefully we're able to give you some helpful feedback there. Next, we've got Syncopaint on this crazy Casa Doom. Is that what it's called? Casa Doom? Moria? Mine's Moria? Something from the Lord of the Rings. There's like a Balor or a Balrog and
It's a Balrog,
Gandalf
yeah.
and some hobbity guys here. So yeah, I did actually have checked through your Instagram just to get more views of it because obviously you couldn't get everything in there. I understand why you wanted to put the video because there's so much to see. It's really great. I love how you've added so much color into bits. Like when you look at the Balrog, it's got like okay, it's orange and kind of black, but it's also got like purple and green and everything in there. Same with the rocks; they've got all these different multicolored elements to them instead of just being grey. And I think it's very interesting having the color like infused into everything and having like little Easter eggs hidden away, like Gollum down here crawling around, which is he was there, I believe. In like later on, they realize he must have gone through there. So yeah, I think it's really really nice. I think the it's a different take than in the film. In the film, I think in this scene everything is quite monochromatic. Everything's lit by like the flames from the Balrog, whereas here it looks like there's another kind of like source of light to create all these different or to show us all these different colors on the stone. Um, but I think that you could have a bit more kind of separation where you have this kind of the shadow, like obviously Gandalf is lit more from in front because there's a light coming from the Balrog as well. But like the ground in front of Gandalf is like actually really brightly lit, whereas you would think it would be like a shadow before he's like illuminated. If you think of it as being like, in a play, you'd have the two actors there and you'd have a spotlight on one, a spotlight on the other, and the ground between them would be quite dark. So you kind of wanted to like have a high contrast between the actor and the surrounding. So you have Gandalf well lit, and then the rocks around him could just be black because they are, actually black in real life. So even though they're illuminated, it doesn't show up that much. But it looks like he's got this kind of blue light that's coming from behind him, but it's making the actual ground in front of him brighter than like the ground in the middle of the bridge or whatever. So just watch out for that. It's a bit of an issue when you have these opposing tones. You have to have like a big shadow in between them because otherwise you end up um, showing just like more lighting instead of showing darkness, if that makes sense. But yeah, I like the whole kind of like take on it. It seems more like a kind of like a fun, like D&D style adventure look. Reminds me of like the Underdark, as opposed to the film, which is more like kind of gritty and very dark and brooding by comparison. So yeah, I don't even know how much time must have gone into this. I'd say it's an absolutely shocking amount, and it's a gorgeous piece of work. So thanks a million for submitting. Hopefully that's helpful to you, Jim.
Yeah, that's like the small details, like the teeth on the Balrog, just awesome. Really, and like the texture on the tongue, like all the way down into the mouth, like hours must have gone into that. Really, really good. Yeah, again, stunning use of color. You're making a boring color out of lots of interesting colors, and that's very impressive. I think my only gripe with this really is the tone of the cast glow from the Balrog. So he's on fire, and it looks like you've kind of used like yellow and orange to kind of paint the cast glow away from him. And I think it would look, well, if that is the case, rather than like yellow, if they are yellow highlights, that kind of doesn't make much sense if it's not coming from the Balrog, because this place was very, very dark, and the only two light sources were the Balrog and Gandalf's staff when he obviously fired up his protective sphere, which isn't quite happened yet. But yeah, this should be cast glow, so this should all be in like a reddish hue, not yellow. I think that would be a lot more readable. in the colors of the rocks. It's nice to have like the cool shadow colors and make grey out of interesting colors like blue and purple and greens and stuff, and indeed red. But these bright highlights that are catching off, it does look like it needs to be sort of more in the red spectrum to give it the effect that it's the fire of the Balrog that's lighting everything up. But yeah, on the whole, a super diorama. Would have loved to see some more pictures on it. Shame Facebook's done you dirty on that one, but yeah, stunning work. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Moving on to Angus, set of blade guard for the flesh tearers. Just want some nitpicking on these. Proud of the result, but always hoping to improve. New techniques for plasma glow, NMM, and some freehand. So yeah, straight off the bat, they look really tidy. So great job. You got some super transitions in the red. Edge highlighted nicely. Subtle battle damage, very good. The leather has got some good effects on it. I like how you've mixed up having brown leather and black leather as well. That's really cool. The OSL effects on the swords definitely working. So yeah, there's an awful lot going right with these. It's, you know, if these are for the table, they just look amazing, is what I've written down. So if you were trying to push them a little bit further, like some of the it looks like dry brush highlighting has gone on. So try and smooth that out if you don't know already. Then your brush should be a little bit damp, not wet, obviously, but not completely dry either. So it looks like you've got a little bit of chalkiness in some places that have come up. But if you are doing this with a brush, then try and get a little bit more deliberate highlighting on the tops of things rather than just the edges. But again, this is only if you're wanting to push them a little bit further, because, you know, for the tabletop, these are great. You can smooth out and maybe add some texture to the red fabric as well on the Judy. Fair play for you to getting your hands on a Judicia as well, because they're either very expensive or very rare. So well done for grabbing one of those dudes. I proxy mine, and I wish I had him. It's such a badass model. Little bit untidy on the base rims as well, so make sure you're filing them back, smoothing them down, and getting that nice crisp black line all the way around. But yeah, as a unit on the whole, you know, when you see this for the bigger picture, you know, you zoom out, you know, great level of detail on the basing, variety to what's going on down there. Very dry, very dusty. You know, if you've used pigments there, nailed it. Looks super duper. And bringing that weathering up onto the bottom of the feet as well. It's a difficult thing to do. You know, people either don't do it enough or do it far too high up or too heavy. But I think you've got a delicious balance there of weathering on the feet. So yeah, the whole squad's come together really nicely, and I hope you eviscerate a great many filthy heretics in the next coming weeks with them. Good luck. Over to you, dude.
Yeah, they're really nice. I love this like whole scheme altogether. Love the kind of like visceral red and the black contrasting and the green glow. The glowy swords are cool. They're like almost like cyberpunky looking, kind of like the Matrix, where it's like that like green glow on black. And then the NMM sword on the main guy is obviously very successful, so good job on that. And I think it works as well in the context of the medals that you have on, because you have like true metallic metal there as well. The only thing I'd say that could be improved very quickly would be to just add a little bit of shading onto the bases, just because it's like I like the bases, but they look very like so right. If they're lit like really brightly, which they appear to be, that's gonna like desaturate the colors everywhere. Because if you have extremely high light, it makes everything kind of whitish, and that's what the bases look like. They've got this like deserty, real deserty feel, and then the characters are a little bit more like they're in not as intense of a light. So I think there should just be some like literally like some oil wash just to run into the bases. It might be the photos as well. It might just not be picking up the contrast, but it's like there isn't. It doesn't look like, you know, for example, this grass is casting a shadow on the ground around it or under it, whereas all your figures have that kind of volumetric lighting where they have kind of like, you know, recessed areas are shaded and raised areas are lit and that kind of thing. And I think that's just a very small element that would just make everything pop that little bit more. But again, could just be photos. It's hard to tell. Okay, we've got more Blood Angels and more me complaining about bases. So first army, doing some glazing and layering, very good. Thinking of redoing bases. Yeah, these plants are fun. I've used something like these. They're like from an aquarium or from like a dinosaur kit or something, but they're way, way, way too big. Um, you could get away with this size of plants if you had like a display board for them and the models were on like plugs and they were plugged into the board and the plants were in between the guys. But you don't want to have a plant that's the same size as your dude on his base. It's just like, it's like again, if you're doing a film, you don't shoot the actors with a tree like in front of them. You have or like really cluttered areas. It doesn't look great. Uh, I think like the town wise, in terms of being a jungle and they're fighting the jungle, yeah, it's pretty cool. Like this guy is literally in a bush though, and like, yep, just hide that away, or make some scenery that could be in it, and then just keep the 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 foliage like minimal on the bases. It's like a conceit thing. It's like a makey uppy thing. It doesn't make sense that if they're in the jungle, yeah, there should be loads of stuff around them that'll make them hard to see. But we also want to be able to see them, so you have to like suspend your disbelief or whatever. They're space like men anyway, so it's fine. I really like the transitions you've got on the armor. I love the way you've got a kind of like it goes up to an orangey red from a much more browny, like in the shadows, and it looks really good. I think the faces look nice. You've got like these kind of glowing eyes. They all look deranged and like they've got like the bloodthirst or whatever on them. And I think the battle damage looks very good as well, especially on like the knee pads and things like that for some of the guys. The swords, chain swords are cool. I like your damage. I like your hazard stripes and your blood. But the blood isn't like kind of motivated, if that makes sense. Like they've got blood splatter on the back of the blades of their swords more than the front of them, but obviously the front is where the blood's coming out of, so it should have more blood on the cutting edge, and then like try and like draw it up so it's like directional. Uh, would be my advice. It looks more like they got like sprayed with blood from somewhere else as opposed to the sword hitting something and it being kind of the source of the blood, if that makes sense. I said the foliage. Oh yeah, you could break up the armor a little bit more if you want to spend more time on them. Like say this like belt buckle here is in like the same color as their armor, but that could be in a different color, or you could do like some of like the like ribbing that's in between their elbow and their shoulder and stuff. You could do that in like black with like a white highlight or whatever. Kind of like those flesh tearers, but like not as extreme. It's just a good way to basically get more definition on your figure. And it doesn't take a huge amount of time as well because you don't necessarily need to have like a really great blend because you're separating the areas by having them be actually different colors. But yeah, I think they're really nice. I think they're like, I don't know if they're like a kill team or whatever, but they have that kind of feel of like they're a team of, it's like Predator, a team of guys gone out into the jungle, and they're like got a mission to do, and then they have to come back out of it alive or dead. So yeah, I think it's really great. Jim?
Yeah, they look really good. You've got this thing going on, it's almost like a painterly effect. Like when you look at them um, from far out, like they really pop. They gel cohesively as a unit. They're very uniformed. In the way that they've been executed. And then when you zoom in, you've got like this like painterly, like deliberate showing of the brush strokes and stuff. And I couldn't figure out whether it's a lack of brush control, speed, just absolutely going for it, railing these out in half an hour or whatever, or whether it's like a really freelance like artistic license to just do whatever the hell you want. But there's really pulling it off either way. I do think that however, you should definitely go in with the black and pick out the black skin, the what's it called, the black carapace, I think it's called. You've done it in some places and even highlighted it grey, but you've got to be a bit more consistent with that. Get it in on all the joints and stuff. Not 100% sold on the deliberate damage that you've done with knives and drills on them. I just think it sells a lot better at this scale anyway if you just paint the damage on. So yeah, that might be a bit of a personal preference, but it's hard to keep the scale what's the word, consistent when you're doing like that. Sometimes it looks really good when they're small, I suppose, but then like some of the bigger ones, it's just a little bit overpowering. It's just like we're kind of aware of how that happened. As for the blood as well, Matt said, I just don't think it's glossy enough or dark enough. Don't use red paint for blood. It doesn't work. If you're going to use it, it's got to be the right tone of red, not like the same scarlet red that's been used for the armor. Where are those chainswords? Come on. Mix some black in as well for fresher blood, but it basically the rule is it's got to be thick and it's got to be glossy as well. So mixing some dark red or some red and black in with a gloss varnish works, or just buy blood for the blood god. It's the best technical, quick paint job there is for blood. So just get it. It looks awesome always. But yeah, they look really, really great. So yeah, well done. Awesome. I quite like the bases as well, by the way. Some of the foliage is a bit too big, perhaps, yeah, it's easily snipped back, but I like the big, bulky, blocky on the top jungly bases. Success. Thank you, Jameer. Now Facer was going to fall over. Oh, we nearly got to a whole half dozen, didn't we? Before it happened. Oh, this happened 6-7 times last time.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it has to happen. We've got to give the people what they want.
It's almost become predictable.
Yeah.
Right, we're back.
So we get likes. If we didn't have Facebook crapping out, people would be like, why do we tune in? What's our unique selling point?
Watch Jim sweat and fret as his Facebook falls over again.
And then at some stage, it just won't come back on, and we'll just make up what the figures were. It's a great figure.
All right, screaming on then with Stu, who's been very naughty, and he's given us 4 models and not a single word of description. So wag wag, Stu. So what we'll do is when this happens, you just get the first image that you submitted, which is this cyberpunk lady. So we'll have a crack at her and just do general. So I think she looks really good. I like the lighting that you've got going on the blue armor. I think that's better than the green armor, which just looks kind of like a chunky heavy metal style. So if you're gonna, I would go back in with the darker tone and just make the edges a bit more refined and sharper. Good work on the skin. You've got some nice tones there. It looks like you've got even blue eyes, and this scale of model is really, really tiny. So the fact that you've got white and color and pupil in there is really impressive. So good job there. The metals, though, I think you could do with some more contrast in them. It doesn't go. The shadow is deep enough, but it just doesn't go up to a bright enough highlight. And I don't think there's enough reflections on the metal either, assuming this is steel and gold or some sort of brass. Yeah, a little bit more contrast would really help there. And then the final thing really was confused by the light on the base. Is it a blue base affected by red light, or is it a red base affected by blue light? I don't know. It's not selling because if those are interference colors or an interference color on the base, then it needs to be interfering with the model as well to sell which of those colors is the interference color. But other than that, at this scale, there's really, really, really tidy work. It's separated really beautifully as well. So great job, Stu. Thank you very much. Over to you, Matt. Are you going to do the same one, or are you going to pick a different one?
I'll do the same one, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing with the base. Like to me, it looks like it's gray base with a blue light and a red light, but the figure doesn't have any blue or red light on it, so it's kind of confusing. Also, if it is a red light coming from this side, you probably want it to change tone. It goes from like black, orange, whereas it should go like orange, like fluorescent magenta or something, or like change tone like up to yellow. If it is orange, it'll go up to yellow. If it's red, it'll go up to orange. If that makes sense. And yeah, I agree with Jim about the metal. I think the legs, like, they're just a bit too edge highlighted. It's like you highlighted all the edges on them, but like if it is shiny green metal, like some of the flats are going to be highlighted, yeah, because some of those flats are facing towards the light, so you'd have to have that on some parts of it, and that's what's going to really sell it for you as being reflective. And it just it's really, really nicely done in terms of the scale and everything. Like it's so small, you've got so much going on. But I'd just be a bit more selective as well in terms of like the color palette that you use. Because if we exempt the base, like you've got green, blue, yellow, and pink for the hair, and orange straps, and then the base is like red and orange and blue, and it's like it kind of works. It's got this like it's a riot of cyberpunky fun colors, but like it's just why you should have a reason for like this is why I put this color on here rather than I put every color on that I wanted. Suppose maybe that was it, but like I think it's working kind of well for compositionally because you've got this kind of green triangle and this blue thing in the middle. Uh, but just like have a think about how we're using colors and how's that going to affect our perception of the piece. I think like again, this would look without if you just took away the base, if you made the base gray, it would look better because you're just like, okay, cool. The colors are on the figure. I'm not looking at the ground because the ground, like the base looks really cool. I really like this base, but like I'm not meant to be looking at the ground in between the figure's feet, if that makes sense. But yeah, it is a really nice figure, so we should be looking up at the important bits on it. All right, Andy Navarez submitted some Fallout miniatures. It's like a team of raiders. I can't wait to get them on board. Very good. They're looking nice. Uh, Very hard to tell much from the photos, to be honest with you. You've got some sort of issues with the focus on it. So when you take photos of your figures, you don't want them to be like actually behind and in front of each other because your camera has what's called focal depth, which is basically how much it can have in focus at a time. So anything behind the focal depth will be out of focus, and anything in front of it. So you can see this guy in the middle with the kind of like flamethrower or whatever is perfectly in focus, whereas the woman in front of him is completely out of focus, and the guy behind is like somewhat out of focus. So you'll notice a lot of people when they put up crews, they put them like in a line because that lets you get them all in focus because they're all the same distance from the camera. And then they're not like obscuring each other. You can also do multiple smaller pictures to deal with that issue. I think the armor looks nice. I like this kind of red and black feel. It makes them look kind of like villainous, very much so. Some of them, there's like one person on the bottom left who looks to be almost entirely black, but I'm not sure if that's because they're like facing away from the camera. It's kind of hard to tell. But you obviously want to have like roughly even amounts of red and black. And I think just a really nice kind of scheme, and I haven't seen that for Fallout. It's usually that kind of green Brotherhood of Steel look to them. And then, but for the bases, I'd be interested in seeing, are they going to be like, you're going to give them like wasteland kind of bases, or are this just going to be these black things? They look like they've got a few elements of basing on there. If they're meant to just be for like a board game or whatever, uh, I would have them just be plain black with the figure on them, or have some like sort of basing effect. I wouldn't have like the figure and some other like little items scattered around because it makes them look like they're in like a weird existential void when you do that. But yeah, uh, quite hard to tell from the photos. But thanks for submitting anyway. Hopefully we've been able to give you some feedback on the figures.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say about this is when you're taking pictures, make sure that the light is coming towards the model light, so away from the camera. The minute you can tell from the shadows that your light is facing towards the camera, so you're putting all of the models into shadow and no one can see what's going on. So it's the same as when you take a picture in your house, or when you're outside, you always make sure the sun's behind you, right? So it's always got to be the same thing, otherwise you just can't pick out what you're trying to actually take a picture of. So I hope that helps. I hope they come together nicely. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see them with some basing material on. But yeah, looking good, man. Right, so Big Mech done the same thing. 3 completely separate submissions. We cannot do this. We have no time, brother. So I'm going to go for Private Pugnacious. I wanted to try and paint in smaller eyes with the same amount of detail from previous Goblos. Tried painting texture on the cloth and fur, and then reinforcing the pattern of the texture using the black lining. It's more noticeable on the jacket and the rolled up sleeping bag, so just an opinion on the face, eyes, and the black line, reinforcing the texture on the fur and cloth. So starting with the face then, really, really adorable, isn't he? Yes. Amazing level of detail in the eyes. I think you've nailed those. That's really, really cool. Great tonality in the grey as well. That's a really tricky colour, like to paint a dark grey, but have enough like contrast and volume to it. So I think you've done really, really well there and like captured that really dusty grey that pugs have in their face, and how it sort of subtly blends out as well into the rest of the like the more tan fur. I think you've done a really great job with that. So well done there, and minimising the black lining as well. in the fur, I think is important. That would have been a really, really easy thing to overpower. With the fur, though, I do think you could have gone for a little bit more of the like ordinary texture, if you like, without the black lining. You know, like how you've done on the rest of the fabrics. I think you could have done a little bit more in the fur, not too much, but just a shade more. Would have been cool. And then in the fabrics, I think again, it's definitely working. It's reinforcing the texture that's there, but just a little bit more in the highlights. I think on the fabrics would have been good. Whoops, one too far. You just could have gone up another step. I think it's kind of like a wishy-washy highlight, and I think you could just push that, especially where it's sort of rolled up, and it would be like the fibers would be like under stress. They'd be get a bit tighter and a bit more reflective, I feel. So a little bit more there would be great. But in general, yeah, again for the scale. One other thing that you didn't mention, again, stunning work on the eyeballs. That's really, really impressive. So he's kind of got that like derpy look. They do always look a little bit derpy, don't they, pugs? Because it also does look like he's either just run full tilt into a brick wall or been smashed with a 400cc driver right in the face, and they just look a bit derpy. And I think I think it's the way you've done the pupils and the glint reflection. It just looks a bit derp, but in a nice way, in a cute, endearing way. So it's just one of those characteristic features of pugs. That's, you know, when you're just looking at a grey model, or you've just primed it, or whatever colour you primed it, you've got to capture that character, that life, the soul of it, and I think you've done that in the face beautifully. So awesome work there. Then I just had one other thing is just let the toenails look a little bit flat. You could maybe do a little bit more of those, and like where the edge, where they're meeting the fur, is not quite as crisp and finely defined as it could be. So yeah, I know it's just the feet and they're on the floor, and who cares, right? He's also not really. I've just noticed he's not really settled down onto the base terribly flush either. So yeah, it's kind of like up a little bit. So yeah, maybe settling down as well, just tidying up the feet. But yeah, really, really nice work overall. Which one were you going to do, dude? Over to you.
I'll do the same. Yeah.
Puggy,
I'd love to
Puggy.
talk about. I'd love to talk about the box brought, but if you submit more than one figure and they're like substantially different, we just have to do the top one because that's the rules.
Reasons.
Yeah, we have reasons. Yeah, he's really really nice. I agree with Jim. The feet are a little bit like hoof like the way there's no kind of like blend in between the toes and the feet. Um, the eyes look amazing. Like I assume the whole like cross-eyed thing is on purpose. I love how you've got this like secondary reflection in the left eye, where it's like it's in like the eyeball and like the outside of the iris is like blown out by this like bouncing light from the other side. It looks really good. Um, I think it really matters, but like you did the highlight in both the eyes in the same place relative to the pupil. I don't know how intentional that was, but like if the light is coming from up here, the dot in his right eye is actually going to be in a different place relative to where because his eyes are facing in different directions. Yeah, so this dot should actually be, instead of it being like on just on his pupil, it should be like actually off his pupil because it'll be at the same point on the sphere of the eye, if that makes sense. So like you could have it on the white or blending it kind of like this other one. I don't think it matters to the piece. It's just in case you didn't know that. And then yeah, the kind of gold like skull with wings. I think it's almost there. I think you could have a little bit more, like either a bit of an amber tonality into the skull bit, like the frontal bone is very like just all one color. And I think as well because you have this really strong black lining, it kind of calls out for some edge highlighting as well, like in between the like wings. You know, you got the black line that's telling us like there's a big cutaway bit, so that implies there's an edge there that should be like have a white line across it as well. But really, it's the face on this figure. It's so good. It looks like an actual painting of Pug. It's amazing. I don't have no idea how you did that at scale. It's like shockingly good. So yeah, that's that. Thanks for submitting, as always. That's your profile picture now. Yes, that's
Oh yeah,
part of your profile.
fair, definitely fair.
Great. Okay, we got Gabrielle Rizzoli here. Looking at comparing your own work to other people's. You shouldn't compare your work to other people's. You should
Never.
compare your own work to your own work. What is it that saying? Comparison is the thief of joy. Because obviously there's always going to be someone who's better than you, and then people someone who's much better than you probably looks at their own work and goes like, "Ah, that's pretty crap," because we're all more critical of our own work than we are of other people's, because we spend more time looking at it and we know what we imagined it should look like, whereas someone else has no idea what you imagined it should look like. They just know what it does look like. So first attempt at doing NMM, don't think it was a great choice of the figure. Couldn't figure out the way the lights work, and especially on the side. Yeah. So yeah, for NMM, generally speaking, when you're starting off, you want to start with small areas with simple shapes. So like stuff like bangles, like rings, are really good. Uh, anything like a cylinder, and like the smaller the area and the less areas the better. So like one guy who has like a bracelet on is like ideal, because all you have to do is sell the shape of that one bracelet reflecting the light coherently. If I have a bracelet on the other hand and earrings and like a hat with like a steel thing in it, all of the metals have to sell the same story, and if you like don't get the lights interacting correctly for the different objects, then it doesn't work out. So it makes it like uh, exponentially more complicated. Um, so yeah, I totally feel your pain. Like I think we've all gone through this in terms of trying NMM, but you don't get better at doing NMM by not doing NMM. Like you just have to do it a lot. So keep it up. I think the helmet looks like there's a lot on this figure that looks really, really, really good. But you gotta say, like the helm, I really love that really bright white. It really draws your attention in there with the red eye. It's like got this kind of like bony, like rhino kind of look to it. I think the green armor looks very good. I love the way you've got like your edge highlights and you're going to that kind of yellowish tone. It's got that kind of gross, kind of putrid connotation to it, but it's not like it's still nice to look at. So I think that's hugely successful. Um, I probably another a bit of an issue is you have this actually gold painted horn on his head, uh, and that's gonna really mess up our perception of things because it reflects light, like actually reflects light. Whereas when you paint NMM, you are pretending that the thing reflects light. So when you have an actual true metallic surface there, it's gonna like tell a different story than what you've painted on, which again triggers our like fakeness perception. That's why people tend to use a lot of like really matte paint when they're painting NMM, and also why you see it so much online because NMM looks better in photographs than it does in real life. Uh, and TMM is like the reverse. TMM looks better in real life than in photographs. So I'd recommend for your next figure you're doing MM on, pick one that has less metal, like someone who just has like an ultramarine who has a gold rim on one shoulder and the chest thingy, because it'll just make your life a lot easier. I think the scythe looks cool. It doesn't look like metal. It looks like some crazy rusted metal, which I think is really nice. Um, and then like there's certain areas like the blade is definitely the most successful bit. Some of the bits further down, it's a bit random how you have the light like on it. It's like there's no kind of like rationale. And particularly these bits on, so there's the ring at the bottom of the bottom of the side. Like look up like a image of just a gold ring. Like there's a very particular pattern of light that would occur on that object, and it's not what you've shown. You've kind of like highlighted the outer part of the ring, whereas it's like the bottom is highlighted and the top because it's like a cup. Imagine it's like a cup that's getting like filled up with the light. And then the way you've done like the kind of like bands, like at the bottom of the side again, there's like this like band of metal that holds the hand guard on or whatever, and you have the light like fully wrapping around, like as if I was holding this cup, and the light goes like the whole way from this side over to the back. Whereas that's not how it works. Like if the light's here, it's going to illuminate a strip that's just like narrow, and here it's not going to go the whole way around here. You'll never get something illuminated 180 degrees from one light source, because actually at 180 degrees, you're now perpendicular to the light and the illumination drops to zero. So like the front facing should be very bright, and it should go then to zero before you get to the sides, and then at the sides you'll have another light coming from somewhere else. If that makes sense. But yeah. baby steps. Pick some smaller bits. Don't worry about it too much. I think this guy looks really good anyway. Uh, Regardless, like if you told me like, oh, it's all corroded chaos metal, I'd be like, yeah, looks class. So I think you can be quite happy with it. Jim, you anything to add?
Not too much, to be honest. It's it's a good first attempt. This little bit at the bottom of the side, the haft, that's probably the most successful piece, I think. Because you've got the good run of color there, and you've almost got the transition smooth enough to sell it. So the I think what's you need to have the full range of color. So for like we give it a number reference, right? 1 to 5, 1 being the brightest highlight and 5 being the deepest shadow. Your metals are kind of mostly in like the 3 and the 4 on the scythe. So you could definitely go for deeper shadow, and then you need to go 2 levels up for the highlighting, and then like a big area of the side that is big shadow. So that kind of want to be the other way around. I was just typing there, trying to find a good video to send through to you, but the phone is not behaving, so I can't do that right now. But I think it's called. Miniac. Whoops. I think it's Miniac that did it. How to highlight almost anything. Something like that. And that's got a really, really great segment in it where it will teach you sort of, here's a cylinder. This is where the light comes from. This is how it reacts. And then, like, here's a cube. This is where the light comes from. This is how it reacts. It's a super, super resource for getting the basic shapes down. And as Matt said, that's where you really want to start with non-metallic metal. Another great example for doing that is just a sword. A super simple, straight sword. Get the technique down on things like that before taking on something complicated like a Death Guard scythe. Is it Death Guard, I think? I don't know. It looks pustully enough. So yeah, it's a massive, massive challenge, and yeah, you've picked a really, really rough model to start with. Rough as in difficult, I mean. But moving on from the metals, the green looks really good. I like the way that you have rendered that, and the rest of the color on it is balanced really nicely. Maybe the boots are too white, where they're, getting into the mud, of course, but then the rest of it is just looks a little bit too flat. So having some shading sort of coming down towards the edges to the left would be left and right would be nice, and then leave the center of it as a highlight. That'd be cool. And then the last one was really, I know it's a mucky, muddy, meh base, but it does just look a little bit dull. If we could pick out some more details in there, that would be nice. And then having the rim an even darker color. It looks like it's brown to match the mud, but just make it black. It always looks better. But yeah, lovely work on the rest of it. So, one final thing, it does look a little bit glossy on this handle and on the armor as well. So if you've got some matte varnish or some lame medium or something like that, just to get rid of that shine, that would really help. Thank you, Gabrielle. Good luck with that. Let us know how you get on. John is back again with some more Crisis stuff by the looks of it. So this one's a practice piece, so ignore the base. Just rip them apart, he says. Okay. So this is finished and not a whip. Okay, well, there's not much ripping to do, to be honest, John. It looks really great, as always. Really, really nice. Like, the smoothness is improving. There's a little bit of a section here where the blend isn't as smooth as it could be on the shin. I'm comparing it to that blend there, and I'm comparing it to that blend there. I mean, that one looks a little bit choppier, but that's because we're zoomed right in, right? But this is literally, there's a colour, and there's a very stark line across it. So there's your first picky bit. The metal of the helm, right around the back and on the bicep as well, can't really tell if it's, and I think I've struggled with this before on your iterations of the steel. Like, is it a blue metal, or is it like a normal silvery, steely metal that's having a blue interference color? Because if it is the latter, then I think the interference is too strong in the midtones. It needs to be biased more towards the shadows, really, and then keep if it's like a really shiny steel, the area of highlight would be a lot purer light, if you get what I mean, more in the white spectrum. But this blue runs all the way from the shadow. It runs through your 5 all the way up to your 2, whereas really it should be like hiding around in the like 3-4. So I've always kind of had a little bit of an issue with that, but you said rip them apart, so here we are. I hope you take that the way that it's intended. Not sure what the texture is on the green. Like, it's not selling a particular material to me or a particular shape either. So there's that one. I love what you did with these red lights on the back, though. That's roaringly, stupendously brilliant. This metal on this calf is better. Loads better. You see how you've got a much blacker black and you've got a much whiter white. You know what I mean? With regards to that element of the NMM, basically, where you've gone, I don't know if it's supposed to be a different metal. I'm not too sure. So there's that just to consider as well. Are they supposed to be different, or are they supposed to all be the same? If they're supposed to be different, then ignore everything I said. But yeah, it's a really great piece. It's hard to really nitpick. Like, I'm trying to give you some stuff to take away. The black is a little bit heavy metal style. It's just flat black, grey outlines, edge highlights. That's it. We could push the contrast on those edge highlights. It looks like it's just been done once, so edge highlights 3 times minimum. So you could definitely push those. Anything else? I'm really clutching at straws, to be honest. They're all very clean, these guys, as in like no battle damage, no dirt, anything like that. So if you're looking for another subtle way which you could add another element of interest, perhaps a little bit of chipping, flaking, something like that, or if it's like you're trying to tell a story with it, a deliberate piece of damage and something next to him which has clearly just caused the damage. Or El Miniaturista does this a lot on Instagram, where he'll have like a bullet ricocheting off the shoulder, or something. His weapon is going off. I've never seen you try any of these sort of things before. So if you're gonna really push, think of something, another element, another effect that you can do, rather than just a bang tidy paint job on the guy. Something else going on. You could have. You've seen people do these little clear plaster cards, and then they've got a drone on the end of it, glued on the end of it, and then they paint the plaster card to make it look like it's a hologram coming out of his armor or something like that. Just some sort of mad effect which takes us beyond just a bang tidy paint job, which this is, to be fair. So yeah, obviously having to extrapolate all this without the base as well, but I think I get what you mean with the green in the shadows and stuff. So yeah, I hope you find that helpful. I'll pass you over to Matt now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's great advice all around. Get outside your comfort zone, do something for pleasure of competition, like something that's gonna attract attention. You're gonna have my plinth. Okay, yeah. So maybe like a backdrop or something could be something, and you could have him like interacting with the backdrop somehow. Like this, he's like looks like he's summoning someone up from behind him. So maybe there's like a tag coming out of the jungle behind him. Although on the jungle base, like I think he'd look cool in a desert because like he is orange. So that makes sense for like desert camo. And then you could do like the thing where like you have the sky earth like chrome metal where it's like reflecting the really big blue sky up above him. I do like I think the medals look very good, especially the shoulder and the knee and then the calf. But I do get what Jim's saying about like for some reason the shoulder has blue in it, but the like knee doesn't. Like well the sky is there or it's not. Yeah. And then I think some of like the panels around his crotch and like stomach area could be more shadow overall because they're like tucked away. You have a similar run on them as to everywhere else. And the same with the gun doesn't have it's got like yeah, I think Jim's kind of said like the amount of edge highlighting. I think the half tone, like the actual color of the gun, should fade to like more. It should go more dark and then have that like white line on it. I'd have a look as well. Juan Hidalgo, JH Minis, he's in the group. And he's a really good YouTube channel, and he did a very similar figure to this. I think he did the tag actually for this, and he has kind of like a bit of what I was talking about, where he has some panels are very strongly highlighted and some aren't, and that creates like a kind of an overall contrast, which again brings more attention from a distance. This guy looks really, really good up close, but from a distance, he's like just a dude. And yeah, the glowing lights in the back are like absolutely stellar. To be honest with you, they look amazing. So yeah, I'd lean into that, or you could lean into that, like as in if you had him and there's a rock behind him and the rock is glowing up pink or whatever. But yeah, looking forward. You're very consistent. Wishing you the best of luck in the competition, and sure we'll see you in future. Okay, Stephen Banks doing this guy trying to go for bright and vibrant. Well, you succeeded. This is like eye-wateringly bright. Like the purple contrasting with the yellow, the orange and the green and the blue. And you've got like every like the color wheels, like you picked literally every side of it. You have them juxtaposed like directly beside each other. So good job. That definitely if that was the goal, you have succeeded 100%. Quite like the pattern as well that you've got the belly of the beast. I don't know if that's like sculpted on, or it looks like maybe it's sculpted on. You kind of carried it on. It's kind of tiger striping thing. I think that's a really nice choice. And the way you've got the yellow fading to orange a little bit before it goes into the purple scales. Um, Texture on the back looks really good. It doesn't really look like silk so much because it's not high contrast enough. Like silk is shiny, so it'll go to white highlights into nearly black shadows. And it also can do that like iridescent thing where purple, like in because it's of how light interacts with it. Just because it's so shiny, like it'll change. It'll go indigo basically in its shadows, and then it'll go like maybe warmer in the highlights. I'm not did like there's like this kind of like rim, this like trim to the cloth. I'm not sure if that's meant to be like metal or just like a paler color, because you've got these kind of like wavelets of highlight on there, and I'm not sure if it's meant to be like NMM style or if it's just meant to be like a bit of a pattern. So I think you could probably exaggerate that a bit. It's meant to just be like shimmeriness, maybe have a bit more shadow in there as well, and maybe if it is meant to be a metallic kind of surface, like he's got steel edging on his cloak, like do some edge highlights on there, along all concave surfaces to make sure it's sticking out. The rider is a little bit lost in it. Like this figure is kind of like that anyway. You're like, oh, it's a cool evil sea unicorn thing, and there's also a guy on there somewhere. But because he's in silver and black and gray, and like it's so everything that's bright and colorful isn't the rider, if that makes sense. Uh, so in one way, you could say like, well, he kind of stands out because he's so kind of neutral, but that's not true though, because bright colors stand out, neutral colors just don't. Um, and then the water effect on the base is another one of my pet peeves here, where water is see-through, not blue. It looks blue. There's this particular angle that you look at the sea, and when it gets steep enough, it becomes blue because it's reflecting the sky or whatever. But like right at the beach, like what you can see through the water, like it'll be sand that's darker, so you should have wet sand, and you do want to add some blue in there. You want it just to sell that it is the sea, but I think you should have basically this go like look up like white sand beach, and you'll see like it literally the sea is like goes teal like cyan, right where it's skinny because it's blue water over white or yellowish sand, and then it goes to blue like as it gets deeper. This looks a little bit like it just suddenly drops off into the ocean, which you could do if this guy was on like a rock or something like that. But because you've told us it's a beach, you need to have a bit more of a transition where it's like blue, instead of it going like bright blue to dark blue, it should go like very, very, very light blue to like medium blue, I'd say, or something like those lines. That's a tricky one. You have to kind of like play around with it. Realism won't work great for you there because you end up painting like transparent water. What's it look like? You can see through it. It doesn't really look like anything. So you have to add some of the blue in there, but I'd tone it back a little. But yeah, in terms of hitting your bases, like your goals that you went in for, I'd say you're like 100% successful on them. Jim?
Yeah, much agree. Especially with that water, that's great advice. I spotted that something didn't really feel right, and yeah, it's because the jade stone is sitting on the beach, and then woomph, cliff just below the water's surface, which is only inches deep there, and then yeah, that's brilliant advice. Um, yeah, really, really love the yellow. You got some great tonality in there and contrast. Not so keen on the purple of the beast though. It kind of looks pretty monotone to be brutally honest. It's kind of a tone of purple which has then been lightly dry brushed with the blue, and that's about it. There is so much room for variation here. You could bring a lot more tonality into this, like the ridge, the spines that go down a bit. I would use those to break up this blue and this blue and this blue and this blue and this blue. It's all just a little bit too much, to be honest. So I would be looking at these spines as a more neutral color, maybe something along those sort of lines. A nice little color transition there, keeping it in the same color wheel, but yeah, just breaking up some of that blue. And then, as Matt said, yeah, just trying to bring some more attention to that rider and brighten him up a little bit, because yeah, he's kind of swallowed in this big sea of blue. But your actual execution and like separation of stuff and the way you've actually rendered the materials is actually really, really nice and very pleasing to look at. So thank you very much, Stephen. See you again next time. Moving up to Bella Cat from Oslind. What a wicked conversion. I love it. Pushing the glaze game for this piece. Always struggled with contrast, so trying to elevate that. Never entered a competition, would like to in the future. So, what steps and improvements would you need to elevate to competition levels? Millions of hours practicing and gallons of wasted paint is probably the answer. I love this that you've taken a Mind Stealer's Spheranx head and slapped it on Bellicor. That is awesome idea. I think it's great. I've seen wings done less well than this that have placed very, very nicely at competitions. I have seen bases which are far less good do very well at competitions. I have seen demon skin, which is less good, do well at competitions. So you're on a really, really good track here. It's almost impossible for us to say what you need to do well at a competition, because, you know, sometimes people win that never expected to, and sometimes people that expected to win don't get even a finalist pin or, you know, commendation or whatever. It's impossible. It depends who's there, what they've brought along, as well, obviously, of what you do. Just, you know, just keep plugging it. Just go to one. You've got nothing to lose. Just go for the experience and see what happens. Just don't expect anything amazing to happen on the first time. Maybe it will. Who knows? But just don't expect to. You're a very, very talented painter. There's some quality work in here. Really, really nice. Critique-wise here, I'd say the skin's a bit shiny. So matte that baby down. And then the sword doesn't look hot enough. So we need much more yellowy orange in it. And this blackening of the tips, like save that for the very end of the tips. I mean, like the last couple of percent. This red should be like all the way up to like here, and then ever so slightly going to brown, and then black is like the very last tip. Like there's way too much black on those flames, dude. But the actual colours are nice. So more yellowy orange throughout the whole thing, more white yellow in the hot spots, and then yeah, red out right the way to the tips. That will sell a lot better. Hard thing to do, flames, and there's lots of ways you can do it to kind of iterate it. But this style that you've done, yeah, just follow those steps. There's so many people who do it in different ways. It's hard to give, you know, one set of advice for that. Let me see. Metals. You could definitely push the highlights on the shape of this leg armor here, so you can have a really, really aggressive highlight. We get that it might be a bit more weathered and not that shiny, but which, you know, we're trying to sell an effect and sell that material as something different. You just need to be careful you don't make it so bright that it takes away from the face, which is currently the brightest thing on there. So that's really, really good. Nice attention there. You could, or yeah, the wings just look stunning. I mean, this picture doesn't show it great because it's blurry as hell, but yeah, great job on the wings. The rune that's been branded into his chest, you could maybe do a little bit more of that, make it brighter in the center, and then it's getting, just general fire colors, and then cooler as it's getting away, kind of like you've done in his eyes, which look really, really impressive. So yeah, I don't know if I had any edge highlight the horns to make them look sharper. So I think I was looking at these ones on the top. So you've got some really tidy lines going on the ones on the bottom. Then it'd be nice to see that on the top as well. I think that's what we need to see there. And these ones on the top here, they just look really heavily daubed in shade to like bring the shape out of those horns. Really wicked set of horns there, really turning. So it'd be nice to do like an actual color transition. So it's nice to do. I'm pointing at the screen like this. You can't see where I'm pointing. Let's use the mouse. What's a nice way to get attention to the head is have a dark tip, and then it comes up through the gamut of browns, and then it goes to like a regular bone color up to the skull, and then you put your ridges in and your shading and stuff. Make sure the bottom is really, really dark. I think the photo is doing a lot of the work here, but it's showing you what needs to be done. Really, really dark underneath. But yeah, that gives you a nice sort of attention run back in towards the face, away from the wings. So, but yeah, really, really, really great stuff overall. Nicely separated on this male loincloth thing that he's got going on as well. So yeah, just go for it. Good luck. Let us know how you get on. But this is a great model. You should be very, very proud of it, Oslin. So thank you very much, Matt.
Yep, you miss all the shots you don't take. So number one piece of advice we can definitely give you: if you want to win a competition, enter one, because we know that you won't win. Can't give you any more guarantees than that, but you won't win if you don't enter. This is a great piece for it though, because it's got an awesome base. It's a very well put together model, like in terms of where you look at it, like it's not too busy. This is a good model for a competition because it is easily readable, it's impressive from a distance, and people are familiar with it, and your eyes actually get drawn into the middle if you paint it properly. Um, some figures aren't. You don't want to pick something that's just like a big massive nonsense, because people will be like, I don't know, maybe it's painted great, but unless it grabs them immediately. And the fact that you have this awesome conversion, like it literally looks like that's better looking than the head that's normally on him, because he's got that weird old bloodletter thing. His horns look great normally, but the actual head is odd. Um, and I think it gives it that extra personal touch, where somebody like, oh, that's new and interesting. It's not just a well painted Bellicor. It's a different take on the figure. I think you could even take it further. Like, for example, if you replace this sword with like a whip, or like some sort of Egyptian sword or something, and that would solve your flame problem as well. Because you're like, oh, flaming sword. I gave him like one of that big red dude's swords, or like a scimitar or something. I'll just paint that. I think your color scheme is really, really, really good. I love this like basically warm and cold contrast, where he's got this bluish fur, and then he's got all these like warm tones in his everywhere else. Basically, I personally wouldn't have done this green stuff on the base. It looks amazing though. Like for me, I would normally want to, if it's if you're using green glue here, I'd do like a poison weapon or something. I think that might be too much. I think you've kind of just about nailed as much of that saturated yellow green as you can get away with, and it just looks so tidy the way it's like bleeding down to the cracks. So I think that's really good. I would probably also do one at least of his eyes with like a pupil or something. Either like do like two normalize and one just like orb, or like do the orb with like some sort of cool looking pupil for people to focus on when they look there. But yeah, like all the little trinkets in the loincloth are really well picked out and look nice. Other stuff you could add in would be like blood and cuts and stuff. Like you get like blood dripping out that thing in his chest. You could have like the cuts in his wings could have like little stains on them. You could have like other just that's another thing judges like to see in competitions, that you've added things to the model as opposed to just painting everything that's there already nicely. which you did. So great work. Find a competition and submit for it and tell us how you got on. But yeah, you can submit this model. You can paint it some more. You can just submit it as it is. See how you get on. Depends on who else comes, basically. Next, we've got Rincewind by Andrew. Second name I'm not going to try and say. Uh, Hit it up for someone else. It's a bit of a different departure from what you normally do. Cool. I said the feet on the luggage like actually disturb me a little bit because they're like painted in such a. I've never seen them done realistically. Normally they're these like weird little booty things when I've seen like other renditions of the luggage. But having these just like look like a load of men's feet sticking out of this thing, it's very creepy and I like it. Um, and I think that the figure, everything about it is obvious. Like if you didn't have the luggage there, I'd be like, this is Rincewind. I can tell that this is. I wouldn't need to see the Wizard of Three Zeds or whatever it is. Just everything about it screams like this is Discworld. So I think that's really good. I think the he's got like a suitably kind of haggard look with his like big red nose and a big bags under his eyes. I think the bags under his eyes could be a different color, like if they're purplier, because they look like they're just like he's got big deep bags, but then inside like the pouchy bit is like just the same skin tone as the surrounding area, which it wouldn't really be, because it's like different kind of skin there. And then I thought that the skin tone on his arms is different. Like his right arm has a kind of a more warm. Maybe it's just photos actually. I have that in my notes anyway. That I thought his right arm had like warm, like kind of younger look to it, and his left arm is kind of like more gray and like aged looking. So just be careful about that. Obviously, you want to, you know, if you want to have someone look really old, you have like irregular coloration. So instead of having like a nice even pink skin tone like I had 20 years ago, you give them like really red blotches and darker ones in different places. Um, and then I also just said that the feet on the luggage could be dirtier, like it's running around here in like a cobbled street. It's gonna be run through mud and stuff. You know, look up. People tend to get like dirt like that collects on the top of their feet because like it gets kicked up and not knocked off, and all like the toes should be. It looks like you got some dirt on them, but like I think you could do it more. Um, if you wanted. And the beard could have more variation in like level because it's just kind of like light gray and then it has dark lines in around it. Whereas, it's gonna you want them to have bits of it are a bit darker. You don't have to go full salt and pepper, but it, even if it is all just white, the bits that are folded under and facing away from the light are going to be substantially darker, and like bits that are like tufting out near his mouth and stuff like that would be a bit lighter. Um, oh, and I think the gem on his chest looks really, really, really good. So good job on that. How are you, Jim?
Yeah, it's a fun piece, isn't it? Really cool. Um, I also feel that the face is the most successful part. Looks like most of the effort's gone in there, but the the beard and the moustache is kind of falling a little bit short of the same level of contrast and smoothness to it. So I'd go. I'm assuming he's a grey old wizard. So maybe push some more shadows into the folds just to darken them a bit, and then come up more into the white for the extreme highlights. It looks like there's some there, but just push it on like the upward facing, and then when there's a different like wave in the hair, definitely brighten them up. But yeah, great attention to detail in the eyes and that like redness in the nose. That's cool. Um, I really like the graining on the wood. I think that was a good effect there. If you want to push that a little bit further, you can integrate some green glazes in some places. Gives it a bit of like life in terms of like moss and stuff growing on it. Also, you could the chest looks quite scratched and dented, so it leads us to believe that it's supposed to be old and battered. So alongside like the green um, mossy type stuff you could put in, you could also add rust and corrosion into like around the rivets or some of these cuts that have gone into the metal, some of the dings and dents and stuff, just to add a little bit more interest to the metal, because it kind of looks a little bit like lead belch has gone on and maybe a little bit of a wash, and that's about it really. So yeah, a little bit more interest in the metals would be cool. Um, I like the skin tones on the legs. I thought maybe you could have some more redness around the knees and the ankles and the toes because they're exposed to the elements. They're probably clattering and battering. Probably take a hit or two as well. So the odd scratch or graze here or there, bruises would be nice. Um, that's perhaps a little bit nitpicky there. And then the last thing was the red, the color of the red on like the knees is really, really, really nice. And then as you sort of go up the model, I get that he's in a little bit more shadow, but you don't sort of see that same vibrancy again in the red as you do on the legs until you start looking at the back of the model. So I kind of feel like some folds and some elements in here could be picked out a little bit brighter because it's bright up top and it's bright below, but like around his sort of chest area, the robe is really, really dull. So just to bring out a little bit more life in it would be nice. But yeah, on the whole, really, really fun piece. So nice one. Thank you very much. Okay, moving up to Demir. Rate my death company. Really proud how these came out, but there's always room for improvement. Yeah, this is the second post along this sort of variant we've had, isn't it? So these are similar to the Blood Angels we saw earlier. Not Death Company though, but yeah, looking awesome, dude. Really, really nice. Same sort of style of bases as well, really big and chunky. I don't like how some of them aren't settled on the base, like overhanging feet, weird. Like this guy has just got floating foot syndrome, which is a really bad case of it. This guy just is falling backwards. If that's deliberate, then make some sort of effect that he's just been struck or something, you know. Because at the moment it just looks like he's falling off, as in like your model is falling off your base, not the story that you're telling. It's not like in a diorama or anything. It looks like he's in a position of charging and it's just falling over. So yeah, just watch out for the positioning of them. But in terms of the actual painting, they look awesome. Really, really great work on the black. Black's a bugger to paint, so you've done a really, really great job highlighting it and shading it. Looks really, really good. Really, really good. The glowing effects on the plasma weapon and the sword. I think it's a glowing sword he's got going on there as well. Like the magma effect. Awesome. Like the cheeky OSL coming out from the lenses is great as well. So, whoa. It's not really. I mean, look at that. It literally looks like it's glowing. So that's 100% selling that. What's not selling so well is the vents on the back, though. That's just kind of a bit red. You need to go up through that same process that you used on the sword. Well, if it's looking like traditional fire, of course. If you're making it look like some sort of red plasma or something, you still need to go a little bit further than what you've done. Pick out the edges in there. A really great tool for using in these actually is I think they're called foam cones. Have you seen those? Really, really great. It's a really fine sponge, like ridiculously fine, and it's in the shape of a cone. Girls use it for makeup, and yeah, super, super tool for getting inside here, and but effectively dry brushing around the edges. So yeah, look into those. They're really, really cool. What was my next point that I had? I've lost my chain of thought. Yeah, blood on the chainsaws. Exactly the same problem we saw earlier. In that it doesn't look like blood. It's not selling like blood. It just looks like red paint's got on the model. To be brutally honest, the easiest way is just to buy Blood for the Blood God, the technical paint from Citadel. Not sponsored in any way. It just is the best blood effect paint. But if not, if you're really against doing that, then it's got to be glossy. It's got to be darker than this, and it's got to have a mixture of red and also black red to make it look really, really fresh blood, which is a lot darker than this sort of scarlet red that we got going on here. And then the last bit of criticism really is just like some of the weathering on the feet just doesn't look particularly well placed. So like these green bits, again, it just looks like something's hit the model and that's it. Some places the weathering's really, really nice, but like we've got to be a little bit softer with the dry brushing or use pigment powders to get it into the recesses or washes indeed. Matte it all down. It's got to be really, really, really matted down. But yeah, and it's not consistent either with it just a sort of splash of green across one, but then there's nothing on the backs of the legs. or the other leg at all, pretty much. So yeah, just a little bit more consistency with the weathering. But like again, when you zoom out and look at the whole lot altogether, they really pop and they look super duper. So nice work, Demir. Thank you very much. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, very aggressive looking, like really high contrast black and red. I love the way you've got a different kind of like the storm hammer is blue glowing, and then the plasma pistol and the power sword orangey glow. I think it looks really well, and like the eye lenses and everything looks great. I like the effect you have on the wings. It's almost like again like a digital, like they're like holographic wings or something like that. But I think you could have a little bit more variety in how each of the feathers is highlighted, because it looks like you kind of did the same pattern on every like feather on every guy. It's kind of like it has the bands of light in more or less the same place, whereas like some of them could have, you know, a more of an edge highlight to them. Some could be broader in some places than others, just to make them look a little bit more like kind of physical objects, I suppose. um and then yeah, just Jim already said it, but I think like the number one thing, or not the number one thing, but a thing for me was like it looks like their bases are too small. Like these models, like I don't know, are they on like 28 mil bases, but they should be on like 40? Maybe it's a scale creep thing, or these like new Marines who are way bigger than the old, but they still want you to use the old dinky bases. Because like even the guys who were just standing normally, like their feet looks like they had a lot of trouble fitting their feet onto the bases. I think the really tall guys kind of work at the best. Technically, he should be on his toe because you don't walk like that. You don't have your heel on something and then step off it. I understand you didn't put him on his toe because you couldn't put a pin in there. But when we're used to seeing people walking around. So like again, the second guy with the we're able to tell from looking at that he's not lifting up his foot because his back foot is on his toes. So that means he is already stepping forward onto nothing. So if he was lifting up that leg, his back leg would be planted on his heel and his toe, and then because we understand as humans, looking at humans, how weight is distributed when people are moving. Similarly, the guy who's falling backwards, you're probably like, oh yeah, maybe he's falling back and he's shooting someone. But if you think of like the Matrix, you have people jumping in a window and they always put both their hands in front of them because they're trying to keep their center of gravity like forward to stop themselves just going head over heels. So if you do that, you know he's just going to fall over backwards. It's because you've taken a figure that is meant to be standing upright and just rotated in. So you could do that if you want to just reposition his arm. Like if he had his sword pointed forwards, and his gun and his sword were like that, and he was falling backwards, that would look much more like he's avoiding incoming fire as opposed to just moving, been repositioned a little bit. But yeah, I think they're really really good. I think the jungle scheme works well here. Red, and I like the kind of cold stone that you've done in the ground as well. So great work. Thanks a million for submitting. Slashy Freddy, doing all the trims in NMM. Pretty happy with the steel. Gold's a little bit dull. Well, it's a Titan. Good job. Did a whole Titan here. I think that goes without worth mentioning. There's a lot of trim. Like one Titan leg has more trim than like a unit of guys by area. So fair play. All the details look really good. I particularly love your striping on the shirt. The yellow has its own like fade to like the gradient into orange, and then even the black has this like it's a little bit light gray in places because of the way it's picking up light. I think that looks super good. I'd imagine it's very hard to pull off because masking and all that kind of stuff. So A+ work on that. And I like how you've got like the decals look really well put on down the legs and the damage in around them or on through them. It all looks very, very good. I think the NMM steel looks the best on the face and the legs. The face has a very chromy kind of look, especially like the lip area. I think looks very, very good. The legs also, it's a little bit more like, I think the fact that you have this like U shape and you've highlighted the bottom of it, that looks very good. And some of the other places, it's a little bit kind of like random where it's highlighted, but it just works well on the legs. On the kind of little castles that he's got on him, it's looking a little bit more unrealistic, I'll just say. Like, because if you think about it, this is shaped like a bell. So, like a bell, like, is it a brass bell you might see in like a school, has this particular pattern of, it's like triangles, I suppose, on it. Whereas you kind of have these very linear like reflections, and the surface is going like this, but you have the line just go straight down. Whereas like parts of that are facing like directly up because it's like a concave surface. So yeah, I'd look at Bell and see how that reflects light. Again, I think it's like kind of working in terms of we know it's meant to be metal. It's kind of like a cartoony version of metal, but that's not the way that shape would reflect light. Um, oh, and then do be careful with all of your rivets. I think you've mostly got them. There's an awful lot of rivets on here. But rivets cast shadows and then have a highlight on them, even if they're in an area with shadow because they're a sphere, and then so that they react like a sphere as opposed to the flat panel that they're in. The gold, it's such a small area that it's a bit like it looks like it's not selling 100% as gold. It's not selling as not gold. Like it's such a small bit that you're like, I look at that Mechanicus cog and I go like, yeah, it's half steel, but like there's a lot of other stuff to be looking at on the figure, so I wouldn't beat yourself up over it at all. Um, I think it's a really like an immense figure, to be honest with you. It's really really well done and fair play for trying all of these techniques that play. Um, just on an overall kind of thing, I'm not an expert on these things at all, but it seems like you've got this, I said, a volcano cannon, some sort of big. I really like that like glowing heated metal gun that it's got, but then all the guns are glowing red, which kind of like a little bit undercuts for me this idea, like that it's a heat based weapon, but also just the machine guns on the front are also glowing because it's hot, and then the engine on the back is all like massive. If this was BattleTech, you'd have a bad time. BattleTech cares about overheating, and you're like exploding, and all its ammunition would explode inside it. Um, so I think you could probably at least tone down some of the heated metal effects on weapons that aren't actually an energy weapon. And then similarly, the plasma coil, it's cool. I like that you have this like blue and red contrast. But I think you got too much white in the plasma coil, like the actual area of it that's white, and especially these like globes that are along the sides of it. They're almost entirely white, but you want it to be like crackly, a lightning in there. Uh, but again, this is a very big figure, and it has so much going on that trying to nail everything 100% would be, well, I wouldn't do it, to be honest with you. So yeah, fair play for even undertaking this. I think the NMM is very successful in places, considering that that was like your main or a goal, uh, and you picked such a difficult figure to execute it on. You've definitely been successful, and it's definitely going to do you good in the future when you come to do NMM. Again, it's a really really great looking figure, up close or from a distance. Jim.
Yeah, it's it's always impressive, isn't it? Looking at a night. I've not done one yet. I would like to, but I'm not brave enough at this stage, and the pile of shame is too big already without adding one to it. But I can only doff my cap to you because it looks awesome, Sasha. It looks really, really great. I mean, doing non-metallic metal for it as well is just so impressive. The only thing I'd say with it, really, I mean, I agree with Matt that the best part is this part, and I think that's because for that surface area, a lot of it is highlight. But when you look at the rest of the trims, I would say probably getting on for 80% of it is shadow. So I'd be broadening out some of these bad boys. That's going to brighten it up loads. Just a thought, NMM is difficult, but you've got a good run of color, but it's best in the face, and because it goes up to a higher highlight and more of the area is actually a highlight. Weapons, yeah, this one absolutely nailed it. I wouldn't bother with the heat effects of these. I'd return those to just normal, just gun muzzles, like perhaps with a muzzle burn on them, so where it goes from brown to purple to blue. You could maybe do that on those, so they have been heated, but they're not currently molten. Um, Plasma glow, yeah. As Matt said, just a little bit too much white in it. You need a little bit more of a transition, and then make the tops of these coils darker to show that they cool the further away they get from the reactor, which is down there. But yeah, great job on the hazard striping, as Matt said. That looks awesome. General, just attention to detail with all the little chips and scratches and decals. There's loads of decals on it. You've done loads of stickers. So yeah, really, really nice. Yeah, I didn't really have a look too much at the base. What was it? There's a dude on the base, isn't there? Am I zoomed in so I can't see it? Yes. So yeah, there's a glowy effect going on with this green guy on the right, which I quite enjoyed that. I think that's nice. I think that's selling. The yellow one, not so much. I'd probably put. You see how much brighter this one is, like with the white. I think this one needs some white in it to really sell this yellow light going off. And then it would make that dude. Where is he? This dude looks a little bit washed out from those lights. I know he's only on the base, and it's not really that important when you're looking at a bloody great Titan. But yeah, I think it'd be nice if he just had a little bit more definition in his shadows. That would be quite cool as well. But again, yeah, zooming out, just stunning work. Love it. Great job, Sasha. Thank you very much. And then screaming up to Harry, looking for feedback on the light direction and color. So do all of parts of the figure seem to be in the same surroundings? And OSL strength and color choices. Try to keep the OSL a bit subdued due to daylight surroundings. And any feedback happily received. Okay, Harry, let's have a look. So the light direction and color first. So it does look like it's all in the same sort of low-ish light, and that the light's coming sort of from this direction. Whoops. So kind of like 1 o'clock. So pretty much zenith, but it's not a particular color. It's just like a very neutral light. So I guess that's fine. I mean, it could be that the photos are a little bit on the dark side because of their exposure. But you said you wanted him in a sort of a lower light, so the OSL sells. So the OSL, I think, on this front light is selling really well. It's gone a little bit too far over the edge here. I believe that it should be there on the bottom bit here, but not so much like around the outside of that edge. I can't work out whether there's an orange light in his suit or that's his red hair. I think it's red hair, like red beard to match his actual hair. The molten weapon looks really, really good from the front. I'm enjoying that. As the reactors as well on the back, you maybe get a little bit more of like the red around the edges, just to show that it's in the same sort of color scheme as the weapon. I'm liking the cast glow on the armor here. I'd probably just deepen the shadow between the cast glow and the actual armor color. That would be nice. And I do like the dustiness on the base, but it does look like there's a little bit of separation missing between some of the elements. So just getting in there with a very, very thin shade or with an oil wash or something like that, just to give it a little bit definition, that would be cool. But I really like the color scheme in general, like the kind of desaturated sea green working other side of the wheel with the reds and the oranges. It's really, really cool. So let me just check, make sure I picked everything out. Yeah, so daylight surroundings. So it wasn't really, really strong OSL. And I think you're in about the right place for it, to be honest. There's a little bit of cast glow, but you're keeping it to the shadows. And the shadows are pretty dark. But again, on this section here, it's another instance where you want the sort of cast glow to be here, and then there be an occlusion shadow, it's called, and then it would return to the normal armor color up here, rather than just go red and it just fades away into the armor color. It doesn't happen like that. You've got to have a shadow separating it. That's what really makes it sell. Yeah, same for this one, same as this one, as I said earlier. But yeah, on the whole, really really nice looking. I think it's Votan dude. Looks quite stumpy and dwarfy. So yeah, hope that helps, Matt.
Yeah, some matter of space dwarf. Yeah, I agree with Jim. It looks like he's outside in the daytime, but it doesn't look like, I wouldn't say it's like broad daylight, if that makes sense. He looks like he's on some world that's very gloomy or like very overcast. Because there's no, if it was just like a clear summer's day, the shadows, like he cast a shadow, and then like the shadows in his legs would be like super dark, and then the tops of his shoulder then would be really, really bright. Whereas he's got much more of that kind of like general basically it's similar. Games Workshop, you can tell they're from England because they paint everything like it's really cloudy all the time. It's bright, but it's cloudy, so the light isn't coming from anywhere in particular. It's just kind of like there. So he's got a bit of that. It looks like it's coming from overhead, but it's not very sunny, if that's what you were going for. Um, and yeah, OSL I think works very well. I just be careful. Decide what kind of reflection it is, because on his like shoulder pad near the hammer, you've got like you got it's like an edge highlight. You're like, okay, so these edges are facing the hammer, so they are lit, but it like kind of goes up a lot onto it. And an edge highlight has a particular direction that it's facing. So it looks like you're kind of in between this idea of like it's just a light source that's fading away and that it's a reflective light, because a reflective light actually is the same brightness everywhere. Does that make sense? So like if you have an edge highlight, like the edge highlight on both sides of this cup, like if there's an edge highlight here, an edge highlight here, they'll be the same brightness. It doesn't matter how far away you are from the light source because that's like trivial. Whereas if it's just like literally lit more, you'll see a gradient. You don't really get a gradient on the edge highlight so much because they're actual highlights. Like they're the highest light. And then the feet, as Jim said, it looks good. It's nice having this weather in here, but it looks like he gently immersed his feet into a bath of this sand and then carefully took them out so that they were like perfectly evenly covered in it. Whereas like the soles of his shoes, like think it should be way more irregular and like spattery, like or have some sort of rationale to it. Like I don't know why the sides of his feet would be so dirty. Like you can imagine his toes are kicking up stuff. The soles are definitely going to be filthier than like anything around them, and like it would be kind of like almost a shadow where like the sole, because it sticks out on the edges, that's going to stop dirt getting like in around on top of it. uh but that's like completely trivial. Like no one actually cares about the dust in your feet. I don't even know why I'm talking about that. You didn't even ask about it. uh but yeah, I think the OSL is fine. It does look a little bit like you cheated slightly because the shoulder pad near the hammer is darker. It's kind of hard to tell in the photos because the angles. Looks like you made it darker on purpose than the left one, which it wouldn't necessarily be, but you want it to be darker. Have the OSL. I think you're fine in doing that. So thanks for submitting. Hopefully that was uh, helpful to you, and you think way too much about putting dust on feet from now on every time you do it. Duarte, does a crack doing complex NMM structures and a light source? Thank you. Yes, this figure is hard to paint. We had who did it before? David. Dave, some guy. Oh, what's his name? Can't remember.
I can't
Really
remember
great
either.
painter.
We have seen it once
Yeah,
before, though, I think.
yeah. It's a whole thing of like she has like light from behind her a lot of the time, and that's hard to do because that's the hardest thing to do. Painting people who are lit from behind because none of their kind of color. You have her more toward it. Looks like she's lit from like here, like from her top right, which is the angle that people like to light things from, basically from like because it's like where you would start reading top left. What do my notes say about this? I think the blade looks extremely good, especially like the lower edge of it where it goes to black, and then like you have just this like edge for the actual cutting edge, uh, and you have like that bit where like you can tell it's like a hexagonal cross section to the blade, and like there's the different like panels of it, but in the highlight you can't tell the difference between the different panels because it's all like blown out. I think that looks really really good, and the way you have it like kind of then it overall fades, and then the tip is really well defined, and you've got this really, like diamond shaped point up here. So I think the sword, and it even looks like you've got like a little bit of reflection of her hand blade because it's a bit more like browner near there. So I think the blade is super successful in terms of NMM. I think the handle is quite good, like the cross guard. The pommel is a bit weird because the faces on the pommel are facing away from the light, but you have the light just kind of like coming along them. If that makes sense. Which isn't really. It's not like how it would reflect in metal because they're. You basically would just have the bottom bits would have an edge highlight, and then the gradient would be the other way around because it's like flattening out. I don't think it's super important, but it's not as good as the crossguard or the blade itself. The armor doesn't really look like it's in the same lighting environment really at all. It's got this issue. Basically, the armor, you have lit it as though she is lit directly from the front, because you have like all the highlights in the middle. So that when you have someone who's lit straight on from the front, highlights are in the middle of because they're like a cylinder, and like you can tell like she's got like that V that comes down from her waist, and all the lights concentrated in there. And that tells us she's being lit symmetrically from the front in her armor, but the rest of her is being lit asymmetrically from like the top and her right. So really, if you want to do that, like I think the breastplate has a bit more light here, but the two legs should be like completely asymmetrical, where one of them is mostly highlight and the other one's mostly shadow. And then these weird spiky bits that are coming out of like her groin that I don't know what they are. It's maybe fur, maybe metal, I don't know, some spikes. But they should be more lit on the side that the light is on, if that makes sense. Then I think the face sells well when you look at it directly from the front, where you have the two lights. When you look at it, it's always a bit tricky when you like look at it from one side. You're like, this looks a bit weird, and you look from the other side, it looks well. You need to have the light to show us the shadow. But when we look at it straight on, it looks quite good. It's got like that desaturated shadows, and it's much warmer and rosier on the right hand side. But you have like some really strong shadow, like right under her nose, like her philtrum here, which I don't know why that will be there. Like if you're doing like a cast shadow, it should go like in line. Like it looks like a weird mustache, and like you don't.
Not that
Weird
mustache.
mustache.
Not that mustache. Do not mention that
Demonetizing this channel mustache. Not that
one.
we're whatever. Yeah. So yeah, you could do it like that Rembrandt shadow if you want to have, but like just get rid of that because you don't have really strong cast shadows everywhere else. It don't make a lot of sense. And then for some reason, her right eyebrow, which is on the lit side, is way darker than her left eyebrow. Like the actual hair, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. You're like, oh well, it's illuminated, but it can't be brighter because it can't be darker because it has light shining. Does that make sense? Um, so you need to do either both the eyebrows. Like I'd probably just make the eyebrow on the lit side a little bit fairer, to be honest with you. So yeah, like I think overall this is like a piece that it's a very challenging piece. You've got like if you just told me this is an element sword, I'd be like, that's absolutely stellar. If you told me like, oh, it's a lady who's being lit with a warm light from one side, I'd be like, yeah, just fix that mustache thing, and it's great. But the problem is having all of those elements makes it a very difficult thing to do. I do think you've really like it's got great atmosphere. She almost seems like she's in like a mausoleum thing where all the shadows, everything's so cool, and there's like one beam of light coming in as she's picking up this like relic weapon. So I think it is very atmospheric, and it's definitely selling that kind of like duality kind of feel to it. So I think you should be very happy with it. To be honest with you, I think it's a good looking piece, and I think there's a lot of really nice work in it. So obviously, Jim might have a little few more things to add on.
Yeah, not too much. That's pretty comprehensive. The dark side of the face just doesn't look like it's been painted yet. I feel like it might be a whip because it's almost like the coverage of the skin isn't even complete. You know what I mean? It's the base coat. So I don't know what's going on. I think obviously if the light is supposed to be coming from this side, this is obviously going to be very, very heavily in shadow, the same way that you've done the cape, and that's selling. That's fine. Like this is all very fine. But like, there's just way too much light on that face, and as Matt pointed out with the darkness of the eyebrow, it just feels to me like it's. And I hope I'm right about this because otherwise, I don't mean for that to be insulting. If you have painted it, like, but from here, quite this angle zoomed in, it just doesn't look like it's painted yet. So I think it might be whipped, to be honest. So do forgive us if we've got that wrong. But yes, this light, what's going to really really sell this aggressive light angle is you've made a good start, like with the shawl cape thing. But what's really going to sell it is the face, like this brown line, this shadow that might be just getting ready to put the other side, completely into shadow. But you need the contrast to be super, super, super strong. So it's not that strong on this cape shawl at the minute. You've kind of got two tones of colour, so you need to be very careful when you're putting highlights on this. You're putting a lot of highlights on the one side, and the other side is very, very dark. So this staying dark so far is good, but you need to go further with the lit side and really exaggerate it. Like you can't take it too far when you're doing an aggressive light source like this. So this is starting to look really good on this side. That's cool. But as you can see, like the skin needs to follow the same thing, and I'm sure I'm 99.9% sure that you haven't painted that side of the head yet, and I really hope that is the case. Sword, as Matt said, looks very, very cool. I would darken that section, the bottom half of the blade, even further. I can't remember if Matt said that enough, but it looks like it's got a ridge on it. So if you've got a ridge away from the light, just basically black it out and have maybe a bounce light or two, like around where the hands are, or you could do a bounce light where it's coming and hitting the cross guard. Totally agree with what Matt said about the armor as well. Fix the lighting on that bad boy. That would be cool. And finally, and again, are you 100% sure that this is a female in this sculpt? Because it seems it from the armor, but the face seems really. Is it definitely a woman? I've not seen it in my hand.
Yeah, I think it is. I think she's like shaved bald.
Yeah,
but that's how I've seen it painted previously. But yeah, I mean, like you could do it.
I can't. I can't tell if the breastplate. You know what I mean? It looks very feminine. Yeah.
Not, yeah.
It looks very feminine, but the head, it might be just because it's got very, at the moment, like strong shadows around the jawline. Like I can't do it in this light, but it's looking quite masculine, the face, because you've got very stark shadows. And again, if this is whip, then it's all fine. But female skin needs to be super, super, super smooth in their transition. So this really aggressive shadow here, this really aggressive shadow in the neck down here, around the lips as well, it's going to make it feel quite masculine because men are just more angular, especially around like their jaws and their necks, where women are quite, sleek and much more smooth in terms of the way light is distributed along the skin. So yeah, just watch out for that. Again, I'm sure, I really, really hope it's whip and I'm not upsetting you greatly, Duarte. But yeah, keep going. It's looking good. It's looking really, really good. Just really exaggerate the lights and properly push the shadows as well. Good luck. Let us know how it goes. Brandon, heavy whip again. So Matt's given you some feedback there, which hopefully you got that one done. Maybe you put it up in the next month's event. That would be cool to see. And then we got on to Alexis. 3 days too late, but I say sod it. Let's just do it. Hey, in for a penny, in for a pound. So was there anything? Was there any specific? No, not really. So again, the pictures aren't quite as clear as they usually are, Alexis, which is a bit strange because you're normally so consistent with like the focus and the lighting. But from what we can see of this, I think this looks like a wonderful. Is it the Dawn or Zorn palette or something? Really, really limited. You've got like three or four colors on it or something. It looks like it's a piece that's been done in that sort of challenge style. Very, very limited palette, but I still think that you've managed to differentiate things really, really nicely with the contrast, the weathering, and the textures that you've gone on it. Like these subtle scars and cuts that are on the beast, like just to break up those elements of skin and giving it that little redness to it to make it look, give it that life. It looks really, really effective. And although there's like not much color-wise to differentiate between the tones in the base, the tones in the wolf, in the leathers, in the saddle, in the armor that the rider is wearing, it's still so nicely rendered that I can scarcely find fault with it, to be honest. The only thing that looks a little bit weird when you look at it from this angle is the skin looks really monotone and flat from this angle. But I don't think the lighting is particularly, because when you look at it from this side, that isn't the case, and it's a completely different tone of green as well. So I think it's just a weird effect that's going on with the lighting for some reason on that one. But once again, yeah, just really, really stunning. And I love the work that you've done on the base as well. The snow effects are really hard to get right, and less is more. And I think you've done a really, really nice job of it once again. And I haven't got anything really critically pushed back for you, I'm afraid. It's just beautiful work once again. So thank you very much. And hopefully Matt can be a little bit more helpful.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's something up with the photos. It looks like the temperature is different on the two sides. So I don't know if it's like it looks like it's meant to be like it's lit from one side and it's like night in the other side. But I think the camera has done something to the pictures because like the snow is like yellower on the side than the side, and there just seems to be a lot less contrast. Like when we look at the back where it's facing away from us, it's a really nice contrast between the wolf and the rider with the like the green skin, and it's like a cold gray, and even the fur looks more defined, whereas everything on the front face looks like it's got this like sepia filter over it,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's much harder to like read, and I don't think it looks like nearly as good, to be honest with you. And I'd say some of it, I'm guessing some of it is like you've done it like the sun is coming up on one side, but I think the camera has done something and it's like kind of taken that tone to everywhere. Because I much prefer the reverse side. I just think it looks much crisper. The base looks absolutely amazing, as Jim said. Like that's like slushy snow, and the way it's like realistically falling everywhere, and you look like a tuft's growing up out through it and everything. That's really great. Um, but yeah, I think just on the front view, like you have the wolf and the rider and the owl, and everything looks very kind of sepia-ish. If like I don't know how much of that is the photo and how much is reality, but if you are doing like okay, the sun is coming up, so it's all very warm on this side and it's cold on the other, you still want to have very cold shadows like in between the rider and the ward, just to separate it out a little bit more. Because I think it looks much more defined in the rear view, and everything looks much more its true color. But I can't tell how much of that is the photos. So you're a great painter, like we know that, Alexis. So I'm sure it looks lovely in the hand. And if it is something to do with the photos, it not like showing it to true to life, just drop it into this month's thingy, and we'll look at it again. But thanks a million for submitting, as always. Thanks to everyone who submitted. Hopefully, we were able to give you some helpful feedback. If you stuck at the end, you've got some serious endurance. Thanks a million for coming along for this journey. I'll see you again for June.